There were many other reasons besides that Vader lost. Let's go to the obvious. He's Vader. He is in this mechanical body now. He doesn't move the same way Anakin did. His chest box is such a liability, and we saw that when Obi-Wan was just crushing it with the hilt of his, which was actually a cool move, with the hilt of his saber, with the butt of it, and we saw Vader was unable to breathe. I mean, once you can't really breathe, it's sort of game over at that point. Now, he could have sustained himself with the Force if he wanted to, but we gotta realize this is not Darth Vader like we really know and think about, right? This is not Darth Vader in the comics that's like just near A New Hope or after A New Hope. This is still 10 years before all that stuff. So he is really only half the man that he becomes, half the machine he becomes. He's still got a lot to learn mentally, he's still got a lot to learn physically with his body, and his cybernetics, Sidious gave him literally the worst. Like outdated tech, stuff that you would never use in today's world, you know, in the Star Wars world. Grievous's technology was up to date. Grievous's technology was better than what Vader had. Think about that. And this is a Jedi Knight who was so used to being able to just move fluidly with his body. Now, these cybernetics are so out of date that I would even bet that they are worse than the one that he got on his arm when Dooku chopped it off in Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. And now in the Brotherhood book, which is canon, and you guys have heard me say this a few times now, if you haven't, welcome to the channel. The book vehemently goes over how his hand, his new robotic hand, is actually very weird to him. And that while it is still, you know, doing a great job, but it actually lags. So he'll like think something to move something, and he says it's not instant. Like there is a downtime where like between his brain and his actual hand moving. So imagine this, but with your entire body, right? Like imagine like in a fight against someone who is an organic being like Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan is like already here pretty much at the point, and Vader's like, in his mind, he's blocking it, but he's still back here because everything is that much slower. And when a fight is that fast, you need to be one-to-one with your thoughts and your body, right? Your motor system needs to be on par with what you're thinking, what you want it to do, right? When you move, it moves. Now, in the books and comics, Vader couldn't move his arms over his head. So this is how immobile he was. Not to mention, you know, just his overall ability or inability to actually move like what we saw in the show, him moving like that, is his maximum. Like he was probably about to just break down in a second. Like his bolts would have probably just come apart if he had kept going, because he's not meant to move that way. He's a very clunky figure, and he's not meant to move in this like same fluid way that Anakin moved, and that's why Obi-Wan was just so super fast, but Vader was just clunky. So if anything, that the show like portrayed it in such a more fluid way than, you know, what is actually realistic. So in Revenge of the Sith, when Vader became Vader and he got all of his cybernetic pieces, he had to relearn how to use a lightsaber. He had to relearn how to move, how to fight. So he had to go through all the lightsaber forms again and learn everything all over again. And not to mention with his body being slower than what his mind was trying to do. I mean, just imagine that. You know, you have to relearn everything. You get a whole new body. You know, your legs are taller, your legs are longer, you're heavier, everything is just different. So, I mean, it's definitely not going to be the same as it was. Now, at Vader's maximum power after his loss to Obi-Wan, he was 80%, only 80%, as powerful as the Emperor. Had he beat Obi-Wan and retained his organic body, his real body, he would have been 200% the power of the Emperor. That Kenobi fight wouldn't have lasted. It would have just been over like that. 80% as powerful as the Emperor is probably near A New Hope to Empire Strikes Back. This is only 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, so this is like, I would argue this is Anakin Skywalker level of power in Revenge of the Sith, except for the fact that he cannot move as fast and he doesn't have the same mobility that he had in terms of like, he can't even like move his body or like arms properly, or, you know, just, he's not mobile. Like he's slower and he's immobile. But I think his force powers are probably more than Revenge of the Sith. But as we saw, Obi-Wan was just so fast and powerful that Vader didn't have all that much time to use the Force because he was too busy getting hit by boulders.